That was
Welcome
punishing.
to the tier list. Yeah, it's been a while. It actually has been a while. Like, it actually has been a while, though,
Has
hasn't
been
it?
hotel.
Why?
I mean,
I don't know what happened to that.
There's no why tier. I mean, it has been. That's it.
Yeah. Point is, I don't like thinking about that because I was in an art class and therefore I met the worst type of people that were infatuated with those characters.
Yeah, the worst type of people has been hotel fans.
Yeah. So far, the worst people I've ever met has been hotel fans. So,
would you recommend art class to any of our viewers?
No, considering I left after 1 year of it. I couldn't stand doing more. Even though I passed it with a distinction, being like the top % ever. Point is, fuck that
just
noise.
Don't even. I just can't wrap my head around that.
It was so easy.
You left.
It was like, yeah, because it was horrible. It was such a waste of time.
A distinction.
Yeah, because I finished the year, I passed the tests, and then I just didn't come back for like the next part. I was like, nah, fuck that noise. I need to start my thriving YouTube channel.
What?
Which it did coincide, so that works out. Point is, we're here.
The time has come
to not waste any more time, and talk about for this video the Gen 1 primary weapons. It will be most likely one sitting for us, so I'm just saying it vocally so we can segregate the video mentally. But yeah, because I feel like, you know, tier lists, you get like a year. Like a year is a good enough amount of time for your opinions to change, especially since the weapons have changed within the year since we last did it. Like there has been some major shifts, well, not really additions to the primaries, but like more secondaries that will have changed the primaries, if you know what I mean. Like the combinations of the new secondaries.
There's only really one big one to me in this that's going to come up in this video.
Probably, yeah.
In that regard.
But it's still a fact that there has been multiple changes to the primaries. There is also new secondaries. So basically, a lot of new factors have changed the weapons, and our opinions have changed because we have played the game the most seriously the last year. At least I have. I mean, Harry, you still have, but it's not saying much.
I think that something's changed about my neighbour's house. I can't quite know what it is.
I think you're in the endless void known as
the back rooms.
Wow.
The back streets.
Wow. Yeah.
The back streets, Tyler.
I don't get the reference. If this is a reference.
Back streets back.
All right. Let's start the video.
So, if anyone's not really familiar with the concept of the weapon generation, that's fair because we kind of made it up.
Yeah, I mean, it's a thing.
I think it should be used, but we did make it up. The easiest way to put it, Tyler, hold on. Just for this video, easiest way to put it, when we say we're talking about the Gen 1 primaries, these are the primary weapons that you have as soon as you start the game for each class.
Yeah, and when the game started, what weapons they had immediately. But that's kind of because that's the thing is that obviously these are the first guns you have, and also with the first guns added, and then Gen 2 is that also. It's the second generation of guns that they added later on, and that they give you later on, and then obviously third gen for when we do that one later.
And obviously I think that kind of probably gets a bit blurred for people because like they probably brand new people who see the weapons, the assignments. They are. I think the Gen 3 ones are all slightly higher level, the assignments, but they still show up around the same time, and it probably confuses people a little bit. But you know, and they're in order in the equipment terminal. It goes 1, 2, 3.
Plus, like Gen 3 is quite still the new weapons, right? Even though it's been like a year now, they're still kind of the new weapons, considering how long ago the Gen 2s were added. So like people might not even know that the game didn't start with like the flamethrower and the cryo cannon at the same time. There was a point where it was only the flamethrower, which was a point in time where we did play the game, but that's not worth talking about. But yeah,
There
point
aren't
is,
many points in time when we didn't.
yeah, there was a. This is a self-made title for the generations, or the other generations, but
With Gen 1ers. You understand? You know what that is? Pokemon.
Yeah. Yeah, but this helps just segregate the video into like 3 distinct parts, and it is kind of important, and not important, but like we'll be able to tell something if we break it down this way in like the I guess the quality of the generations of weapons. Like maybe or maybe not. We're at the beginning of the video, we don't know yet, but point is, we should just start. This will be a long one, even split into 3. But in saying that, I'm not sure how long we can talk about the Warthog.
The Warthog! Auto 210. Engineers Generation 1 Primary.
Yeah, the shotgun. It's a is it a pump shotgun? It is a pump shotgun, right?
I think so.
You don't actually pump it, but it's got a pump on it. You just don't use it.
What's the word used for one where you have to manually load in all of the shells? Like, what's that?
That's just a normal shotgun, I think. Because normally when that isn't the case, you have to. It's like when it's like a drum shotgun, or like that.
Oh, that's the thing. The Warthog is a magazine, and the boomstick just has 2, and he just loads both in at the same time.
Yeah, I don't know, but point is, it is a shotgun, which I think I don't know how we want to, because I feel like we want to break it into like a nice, simple like. These factors are the thing, but I'm just going to start with, as far as shotguns go, the Warthog range is a lot more like short to medium range than just short. Like you can use it at like solidly at like medium range, the Warthog, which I think is an important part of it.
It's an interesting thing to note that it's not necessarily more useful at close range. But I mean, I think this is something that the boomstick does genuinely actually have. Not over it, as in I think the boomstick's worse, but I mean something that it has over the Warthog is that a shotgun is something you'd expect that you'd find yourself being able to use it at close range, and it would potentially save you, you know?
Yeah,
the Warthog's a bit too precise for that. The boomstick has a much wider spread and has even like a blast wave component where it's going to damage everything around you. The only reason the Warthog's good against like individual things at close range, but it's not good when you're like surrounded. Where actually the boomstick, that's an area where it is actually not bad.
It's because it is important to bring up the difference between, even though it's obviously a secondary weapon, the difference between the shotguns. In that, like, the boomstick is your kind of standard shotgun in a game, in that it demolishes close range, right? If you're like face to face about to make out with a Glyphid, the boomstick will send them to Kingdom Come, right? But the Warthog would do just as good if the Glyphid was like 10, 20 meters away, maybe further. I don't really know how to picture the distance, but like it is something that the Warthog really is something that like it's not a long range weapon by any terms, but like once they enter your kind of range, you do just as good. Like if they're in you or like quite far away. Like it's for a shotgun, it's got pretty good range to it, which is my point.
Even without magnetic pellet alignment, it's like you almost tend to just go for weak points with it. It's actually because of the way it is. It feels weirdly precise, or at least it encourages trying to get the full spread of the pellets into a single point, that being the weak point. And I think that's probably one of its biggest strengths to me, is the fact that it's kind of just always good enough. Which is sounds like an abstract thing, but it kind of is. I don't think there's a single build where it can't one-shot a grunt if you land all the pellets in their face on any level.
Literally, like, even mini shells, which is obviously all like mini pellets, or it is mini shells, isn't it?
In this case, the mini shells for the. Whoa, I don't know actually.
Oh yeah, but it is the one where it's like pure ammo and it like doubles your ammo but like halves your damage, right? Even then, its killing potential is like solid, right? Like sometimes I will not notice that I'm running that because it's just still killing things fine, like just generally. And I think that is like an important part of like the Warthog, in that it's just always going to be solid at killing enemies. Like it will give them moments. If you shoot them right, they will probably go down. and it's just a very
It's a very
strong
rewarding weapon as well, isn't it? It's like it feels so much like it's weird when we think when this is the shotgun, and yet it feels so much better when you are precise, when you hit the right spots, because you notice that damage difference so much. And it's not even then. Also, because it's a shotgun, it's generally better again on body shots than a lot of others. It breaks armor more effectively without that upgrade. But that upgrade feels especially fantastic because it is a shotgun. Which means that body shots are more common than usual. Possibly not than they're not more common than not, but you are still going to be landing lots of body shots and armor. You know, it's one of those. It's a weapon that makes the armor breaking upgrade actually feel pretty good, or at least to me. So I think it's got that going for it as well.
In this game.
Yeah, I mean, in the case of any explosive weapon, the unbreaking upgrades just don't work. So
yeah,
and there's very few others where I actually like it. I mean, some weapons I think should have it that don't, but the Warthog actually makes that feel very good. It also, it's one of the few, in my opinion, weapons with only where there's only 2 choices in tier 5, but they're actually genuinely competitive. I think there is.
That's the.
I feel like people who take turret whip.
Yeah, automatic shots and turret whip.
I feel like people take turret whip actually underestimate the other one though. That's the thing. I think they're almost equal, as in it feels so much better as a non-weapon if you take the full auto, because that increases your fire rate and means you can hold down the trigger. It's both of those things, and it just feels so much better that you start to not think about turret whip as much. But turret whip is also fantastic.
Yeah, it really comes down to, and obviously it's pretty obvious, but whether or not you want the Warthog to be your gun. Whether or not you are shooting things actively using the Warthog constantly, that kind of play style. If you're doing that, the automatic one is the best shout. But you can use the Warthog very passively. Despite it being the primary gun, I often have most of the time the Warthog's the only thing I have ammo in. I've used the secondaries, my turrets, my bloody grenades, everything else before my Warthog runs out of ammo. That occurs semi-often, especially or very often with the mini shells, right? And it's because the Warthog, as good as it is, it can kind of take a back seat to the rest of his arsenal, and that's what turret whip's kind of for. It's if you want to kind of just use the shotgun a little bit more passively, or a little bit more interestingly, also I'd argue.
I mean, it is the most interesting thing on it. It's not a particularly exciting weapon. It's just, but it is fairly satisfyingly designed, I think. I mean, they've all got that in some ways, but I think the Warthog particularly, you're putting out a lot of shots in a short span of time, but they feel like full shotgun blasts at the same time. Boomstick, you only ever get 2 shots off before you need to reload, but the Warthog, those, even though you can fire off between 6 to potentially even 12 in a full magazine, each of those blasts still feels very powerful. It's just a very satisfying weapon.
Yeah, it is it is not interesting or encouraging to use via its complication. It's just how rewarding it is. In just every shot that you shoot, you feel the value from it immediately. It's just as simple as it comes, but it's very good at that. Saying that though,
yes.
I feel like we've given it tons and tons of compliments that's making it seem like it's an unholy S tier, but it really doesn't thrive anywhere inherently. It's not it's not got anything that's particularly broken. It's not got anything that's as we mentioned, it's fine without it, but it doesn't have anything that's particularly interesting, right? Which
I think you can absolutely spec it into performing certain roles. With something like magnetic pellet alignment, but actually, to be fair, I couldn't actually give you a specific role for that aside from just being a more long range and precise thing. But
honestly,
Psycho Overload to me is the best single target thing on it, but you just have to be a lot closer up. But you can tear 3 Praetorians with that.
Yesterday when I was doing my missions, I had to promote my driller, so I played engineer. And spoilers, the Warthog is my favorite engineer primary, but it's not saying much. But so I used 3 different overclocks. I used mini shells, magnetic pellet alignment, and stunner. And generally, none of them changed how I used the gun at all. Really, it's just they do what they say, and what they do is good, but it isn't particularly different. Like very often, like nothing you can do to the Warthog will inherently change how you use it drastically. Like everything you do to it, you will just be shooting at like the weakest point you can see, and you will do that at a steady rate. That's the Warthog. That is always the Warthog. You do a good amount of damage in a steady amount of time to whatever weak point you can find, or wherever you can find really on the enemy, and that's it. That's the Warthog. You don't get anything more than that really, which I think is a negative. I would say, in that it's just one thing. It is literally it's just a slow. Well, it's not really slow. It's just a steady shotgun, and it never tries to be more than that, which you could levy as a good or a bad thing. But
I would use that as potentially, probably as a positive. I think the fact that it's so simple, yet I don't feel like it doesn't feel like it's missing anything in particular either. The only thing, in my opinion, it's missing is like, well, you look at its overclock selection, right? It's actually not a bad overclock selection in terms of
very good
competitivity, but it's also limited in terms of just how interesting they are, and in numbers too. There's only 5, and none of them are particularly interesting. So, and this is just on this isn't on a technical level where it's like the Warthog needs this to be competitive, because it doesn't. I think it's the best engine in primary as well. But its simplicity could become a downfall if it just proceeds to never have anything exciting on it.
Yeah,
and I think it really could do with some exciting overclocks.
Yeah, like I mean, obviously, like we probably made a bunch, but like I literally my thought, like just something that slightly changes how you would use it, like a charge up system for like an overclock, where you charge it and then it like tightens the thing and it gives it more range. Something like that would change how you use the gun. Would be something that the Warthog would benefit from.
Well, I sort of view magnetic pellet alignment almost making sense as a charge shot mechanic, where it would like focus in bullets
really,
to a much tighter like point.
Yeah, I mean, yeah, you kind of should do that a bit more, because it really kind of doesn't. Like, it's not that. Like you, if I showed you like gameplay of like the Warthog with like all of the overclocks on it, only like a couple of them you would be able to tell that what overclock it is. Like cycle overload, you'd probably
pretty
notice.
Easy, yeah.
Like cycle overload, you would probably be able to tell. Stunner, if you know how often you should be stunning and like the damage that it does, you might.
If you see someone stun a Praetorian by shooting in the face, that's pretty easy to tell, because Stunner does. Stunner body parts.
Which I would say Stunner is actually probably one of my most favourite overclocks in the game, and I can't quite describe why, but it just is. But yeah, so
Stunner's good. It's not winning any awards for me either.
No, I don't think it's inherently that good. I just really like it for some reason. I think it's because it specs into a unusual status effect, but it's not unusual. Stunning and
what it is, it's
incredibly common.
It's unusual to take stun in that direction. And most stun upgrades, it's either just increasing, like even something that tranquilizer rounds, that it's quite extreme, but it's still just duration. It's either just duration or chance. Stunner introduces a whole nother sort of. It's not insane, but it's like it changes how it's able to stun things. Normally, the Warthog can only stun on weak point hits, and it changes that. And that's not a change that you normally ever see to a status effect on a gun. Like, it's something that the stubby needs. By the way, something.
It wouldn't hurt.
No, I think though we're probably in a position where we should try and decide where exactly to put it. And the way we can do that is by deciding or having two places to put it and deciding between the two. So like, where should it go? So, well, we know it's even going to be one of these two.
Yeah. I think I'm thinking ahead a little bit, I'll be honest with you.
Yeah.
And I think putting it in B will put us in a difficult place.
I agree with that. And I also think that if we were doing this very relative to the class, it would be more A tier as well.
Yeah. I think it is, while not being that like complicated or special, which obviously I've levied it at the like some guns being too complicated, which probably will come up later on in like this series. But like it wouldn't hurt if it got some more interesting elements just to make it, because if you use the Warthog over and over and over and over and over again, it does kind of lose the fun part of using a gun with how similar and repetitive and kind of normal the firing is. But as far as like killing glyphids, keeping you alive, being good, it's definitely A. It is definitely good. It just doesn't do it in a particularly interesting way, and
it's
it
really
falls in some parts.
I mean that's really its biggest downfall, though, isn't it? Which is, I think, it's a credit almost. Its biggest downfall is just simply its simplicity. It's just not interesting enough to be an S tier, which is pretty weird. But at the same time, it's like it's also a bit too generous to be an S tier as well, potentially. A bit too generous.
Yeah,
also not
that is a positive. Yeah, it can never reach like the peak of anything. Like it's never going to have the most ammo in the world. It's never going to do the most damage in the world. But you can make it do both pretty well. Like you can have a lot of ammo and do a lot of damage, which not many other guns tend to offer you. So it's just very good, but it's not quite S tier.
No, it's certainly no Leadstorm powered minigun. That was just for laughs. That doesn't necessarily represent where it's going to end up. Yeah. Also, because of the way that what's being shown on screen, because obviously if they could see more, you would see all the weapons, including some of the secondaries, which is a bit weird. But which is why I kind of just want the thing on screen anyway, so people don't forget what we're talking about.
All right, fair enough.
So there it is.
Yeah, okay.
The mini
quickly put this in here. It's not in B just yet. Maybe it might actually be. Well, no, I do not think it would end up putting it in B. I think you've got to agree with that. I don't know. I don't know what we should start at with the. Maybe we should start the same thing as the Warthog. It's range. Screw it. A random thing that from now on we'll start at. Its range is.
Honestly, okay. I'm going to interrupt you here. Its range is kind of universal.
Yeah, that is what I was thinking.
And this is gonna end up being probably the weirdest compliment I've ever given to anything. The fact that it starts with a lower base spread is sometimes good. Not always, right? But that's actually when it's at its best at close range for some reason, or at least it doesn't hurt it at close range. It's very weird. It's like I said, it's a very weird compliment. But
if you think about it, like. If you needed the gun, like if you were like the only time that you would want to kill something as quickly as immediately as it revs up is if they're as close as like right next to you. And in that point in time, having it be wider is a slight positive, if you know what I mean. Like,
yeah, but at the same time, I think close range is still its biggest weakness because its actual accuracy is very high, and it has no inherent AoE elements, and it also still slows you down. Unlike the Hurricane and the Thunderhead, which have the higher amount of immediate damage, and the Hurricane can stun in an area, and the Thunderhead can fear in an area. The minigun can stun, but if you want to do it in an area, you have to take certain overclocks. Actually, that's just one bad overclock. If you want to do that,
yeah. But I think you still got to I think with base minigun, it's like fucking immaculate medium range, perfectly fine long range if good, and then it will work but isn't perfect short range. But then you put overclocks into it, and it can become a very good short range weapon, right? Like obviously, Burning Hell. Let's bring that up now. It is Burning Hell, right?
Well, Burning Hell. I mean, Burning Hell is definitely up there just in terms of overclocks, but I'm constantly surprised by how not safe I feel with it at close range. That's because it's not like it's fire. It's not a slowdown effect. It's not an immobilization effect. Burning Hell is very good if you can keep mobile. But it's very good. The actual total output of damage that you can get from Burning Hell, when you consider how much it can set on fire directly, and also what can come from, like, and how like few little ammo you need to do that, and how you factor in spread as well, and then you factor in the volatile bullets if you want to use that as well. The amount of damage you can get from Burning Hell is actually kind of disgusting.
I think Burning Hell is obviously like it does a lot of things, but I think it needs to be brought up with Burning Hell how many kind of fire based parts there are to the minigun. Like as far as status effects, like elemental effects go, the minigun is actually a pretty reliable source of one, right? Like you have obviously you have Burning Hell, you have fucking like when you go past 50% heat, it like it's when you 50% heat, it starts burning enemies, right? Like the bullets become hot.
Yep. Hot bullets, fantastic upgrade.
Is thermal like exhaust? Is that? It's not an overclock for the minigun, is it? It's
aggressive venting is it's 5th tier mod.
Oh yeah, it's just because that's an overclock for the track, isn't it? Like
this is just going to go into the. It seems like we just do compliments first but the compliments. Biggest compliment is, honestly, I think it has one of the best mod selections in the game, to be honest. I think there's some, if you look at sort of the middle 3 tiers, it can get a little bit blurry, but I think there's actually a lot of competitivity on pretty much every level, and it has a fantastic selection of 5th tier mods as well. Like all 3 of those have very distinct uses and reasons why you can take them. Cold as the Grave, where it takes away heat on each kill.
Right.
It's a very popular one. Hot Bullets is just completely dominates for me. I actually don't use any of the other ones, but I see the use of all of them. And that's just one of the highest compliments I can pay the minigun. I can see the use for pretty much every upgrade. Although some of them are quite hard to break. Like I can't not spin up time is very important, even though you could take something that actually increases your damage instead.
Well, that's the thing. As much as like you may lean towards some things, you can make the argument that the other stuff is equal to it, and I think that's an important part of like the mod selection. Like even though you have your favorites and you have the things that you think will kind of be better, you can't just say that, right? You can't just say spin up time's better, always pick that, right? Like you can't just go with that statement, which I think for some other weapons you definitely can. Like just some undeniable better ones. Like for the boomstick, always pick the DPS one. Don't pick reload speed. It's actually worse for reload speed.
It also the minigun accomplishes something that is very difficult for weapons to accomplish in Deep Rock. Actually, it's something that Gunner actually has a lot more than anyone else. It's there's actual competitivity between the ammo and damage upgrades, where it isn't black and white. It isn't just you should just take ammo, which I think it is most of the time. Or at least, even in the Warthog's case, where taking damage can feel pretty good, especially if you increase the ammo through overclocks. Most of the time, it's not worth the damage that you're missing out to take the more damage. Like the total damage of taking ammo is just so much more worth it. But in the context of the minigun, they are actually the most competitive, I think. And you can reason by it's one of the ones where I actually don't always take ammo.
I think it's definitely due to the fact that you kind of have ammo, right? Like you have 3,000 of it, give or take. Obviously technically you only have half that, but it's still the fact that your damage per bullet is very important because you have a lot of bullets, right? Like I don't know. I feel like it does kind of Plus, more ammo on the minigun arguably feels kind of pointless, just purely because of the numbers are already so far past thinking about. You know what I mean?
Bullets, baby, you want more bullets, right?
Yeah, but 3,000 and 4,500. Obviously, there's a pretty big difference there, but it's just big number really at that point. But that's more of just a dumb brain simplification. But I don't know. Yeah, minigun. It's not perfect, right? I think let's get out of the way. I think it has some overclocks that there's no good reason to use, right? I mean,
yeah, it's pretty difficult to truly put it in the crowd clearer position, whereas it's almost like that's just what the other two are for. And this is actually, I wouldn't say it's a problem with Gunner, but it's interesting that he has when it comes down to function, he actually has very, very different primary weapons. Where the minigun feels so much more built for single target damage than the other two. Whereas in most cases, I feel like the function is generally more universal, but in this case, that's the position the minigun has. It can still, it's still not bad at taking down a lot of enemies, but that requires you to be quite responsive and accurate as well. You don't want to miss bullets when you're like sort of trying to find a different target or a new target. But especially if you take penetration or armor breaking, both of those can make it feel very good when you're spraying into crowds.
It is a pretty cool weapon. Like, I think it is like, because the thing we levied against the Warthog is the simplicity of it, but the minigun does not suffer from that. Like Burning Hell and Lead Storm, as much as I do not like Lead Storm, like I just don't, I can't stand not being able to move. I know you can like actually like bunny hop and it doesn't really affect you, but fuck that noise. I'm not learning how to do that. But like those upgrades.
Well, the point of that, Tyler, is that it's useful even without that overclock. It's useful in general. That's the point of that mechanic. Why it's worth
but like,
it.
Yeah, but those are like overclocks. They cure it of being a Gen 1 boring weapon. They are the exciting, complex, not really complex, but just the different way of using the gun that overclock should provide. So they do have that, but obviously there are some ways where that was taken as not that great. With I don't know what's it called? You know, the one where like they do like half damage.
What?
Where your bullets do like half damage, but they like ricochet.
Bullet Hell. Bullet Hell's awful.
Bullet Hell.
People try and defend Bullet Hell, and I'm just so upset.
I like Bullet Hell like more than Lead Storm, but I do die so much often.
You know when I say like everything's viable on Hazard 4, Bullet Hell is the thing that makes me question that. It still is, but it's one of those things that actually, to me, doesn't feel good or doesn't feel strong enough on Hazard 4 still. Even though I do think everything is good enough on Hazard 4 and below, but Bullet Hell is one of those things that still doesn't feel strong enough. You can still get by. But another, actually, there is that, and actually I'm going to throw a few more criticisms at the overclocks in a second, but another big compliment I want to pay is that, and it's probably a similar thing to the Warthog as well, there's actually, when you think about it, there's no enemy that it's inherently bad against. As in, the minigun is actually good against everything individually. That's why it's such a good single target weapon. Is that there's nothing that can quite be like, oh, the minigun just doesn't work on this. It's just like, no. As long as you take armor breaking, there is nothing. And obviously positioning is part of it too. Like an oppressor, obviously you can't kill an oppressor by shooting it in the face anyway. But it's so strong, especially when you focus down on the weak point. There's no enemy that can actually truly resist the minigun.
Against dreadnoughts and that kind of thing. Like, don't be dumb, and you'll do fine against anything. Is kind of the thing with the minigun.
Also, Burning Hell sort of covers, I think, the only weakness actually in terms of enemy types that is shared with the Warg as well is tiny enemies. It's just swarmers, and it's not terrible against swarmers actually, only because you have a decent amount of ammo to work with, and you can tap fire to get rid of them. And obviously, Burning Hell is one of the best things against swarmers, though, so it has that, which makes that such a fantastic overclock. But it also has 3 overclocks that all do the same thing, which, in the case of how the game is currently, is criticism, where it's like, there's a damage-based overclock in every category. There's a clean, balanced, and an unstable one. Even though we'd kind of, in a way, I'd like to see that for like every overclock. But as the game is, it's a bit, it makes the selection a lot more bland than it actually is, and that's why, as an even further compliment to Burning Hell, that it feels like it has such a good overclock selection, even when it's sort of bloated with some kind of pointless ones. Like even the ammo ones, there's 2 ammo ones as well. So you've got even a bit more repetition, and one of them, I think the clean one, is completely pointless.
Definitely did get kind of touched by that condition of having overclocks that lap over themselves a lot. Like obviously, I mean, we'll get into this a lot later, but like the Burt is a huge victim. The Thunderhead has some, like, you know, the area damage. Point is that the minigun does have a bit of the repetitus.
Repetitus.
Yeah.
At the same time, it's so it is so strong, and it's also just so popular, and it's one of those very popular choices that I sometimes find myself agreeing with. Actually, not quite, but either way, when it comes to actually placing this in the list, it can't go lower than A.
Yeah.
That doesn't mean it belongs in S. It wasn't as clear. It wasn't as clear of like a choice between the two as the walk was. Like the walk was either going to be A or B. I think the minigun is at least A. There's
I
personally, I'm going to put it in A.
I could not bring myself to put it in S.
Okay.
I don't think it's S. Yeah, and I guess we'll see, like, because maybe we might reassess at the end once we see what we do put in places. But yeah, for now, not happening.
No.
But yeah, tell you what is happening: the crisper flamethrower, which we'll put in B just for now, and maybe we'll keep it there.
Yeah. Okay, that's good. Okay, that's a good thing that we both actually already agree on that.
Yeah.
So the flamethrower.
Should we start with range again?
Range. Okay, range. This is actually very, very definitive.
Yeah.
Mid to close, because there's no long range. Because there's no.
Yeah. Look, there's
Even
no long
with the
range.
range overclock, it's still technically limited range. Even the Warhawk doesn't technically have limited range.
Yeah.
So
Obviously, you won't do much damage long range, but yeah, the flamethrower is literally, it's like, I can't reach it. Come closer. Like that's the flamethrower. That's what it says whenever you try and shoot something that's just out of your range.
And in my opinion, it's the definition of mid to short range because it's actually at its best in between those distances. Personally,
yeah, because at all given times, it is both.
Yeah.
Like you shoot the flamethrower, you are hitting close to medium and all of the in between, like at all given moments, which is why it's a positive to at least both Gen 1 and Gen 2 dual weapons cryocannon, that it just kind of ignores, like it just shoots through things, which is a positive. Like it's a very good thing to be able to just shoot through. It's the same for like oppressors. Like you can just ignore the whole shooting in the face not working for like other weapons. It does work for the flamethrower.
Should we? I don't know why. I think I'd like to point out that this is just the driller opinions are probably going to be the least popular.
Maybe. I would like to state my qualifications. I am like at least a legendary 3 driller. I am probably like 5, 6, maybe 7 promotions above that now.
7 above legendary 3 or legendary 7.
Maybe both. I don't know, but like around there.
I mean, I'm more qualified.
I'm about probably
legendary 11.
Like, but my point is that if I have any qualifications for like having an opinion, it's on driller.
But somehow still not over me. Somehow, I've still played more driller than you.
Yeah, you played too much. Get a life.
I beg your pardon.
Point is, the flamethrower, while it's shooting through things, is, I think we'll go for the positives first, although this will be a bit more negative overall. So should be able to shoot through things is always strong, always good, which is a positive of the flamethrower.
It's also a delicious roaring flame.
Delicious. They pulled the sound effects god out of their ass again.
Just looks
for the
beautiful as well.
Yeah,
the flame stream, the flames, and I think the flames just look very satisfying in Deep Rock anyway.
Yeah, the sound of igniting an enemy, like it's like it's fucking fire.
Toasty.
In the
fire.
Yeah, it's absolute fire. Yeah.
Super hot.
The issue then comes though, because there's not much we could beat around the bush with, is then moving on to the actual like gun. And like the mods and the overclocks is when I think our opinions are gonna be like controversial, because everyone loves the flamethrower. Like it's very popular, the most popular, in fact. I think, right? Like the flamethrower often wins like gun preference polls.
Yep.
Yeah. And
we got that absolutely lit song playing from the background music playing.
I do not understand why people like the flamethrower,
I don't understand it when you look at what the most popular builds are for it.
Yeah.
That's what I don't understand, and this is where we really stray to the community, because my take on it is that the flamethrower is very static in the actually good builds. And I don't think the most popular ones are its good builds, or they're certainly not close to its best. Maybe they are good. Maybe I can't really deny that, but I do think it's at its best when you just go for ammo and heat. That's it.
Yeah, actually, my favorite build on the flamethrower, which I will argue I very enjoy using, is like either the clean ammo or the extended mags, because it indirectly gives you ammo
Clean
and
ammo or balanced ammo.
Yeah, those are by far my favorite overclocks for the flamethrower. The long range one I like, but like it's nice to have, but it doesn't really solve my issues with the flamethrower.
No, that's fair. I think the long range one, to me, I like that one a lot because I think that's a very fair thing that it sort of not necessarily fixes, but it gives you that the flamethrower doesn't necessarily have without really too big of negatives in the way.
I would say, and this really isn't like a criticism to like anything particular, but like my biggest, not my biggest issue, an issue I have using the flamethrower, like generally, like in all the time, is reloading. I get caught out reloading the flamethrower so fucking often. Probably because I use the cryo cannon a lot and I don't have to worry about that. And the sludge pump doesn't also really have an issue with reloading, to be honest with you. Mainly because when you use the sludge pump, while you're reloading, your shot still exists, if you know what I mean. Like, there's still a pool of slime on the floor that you can use while reloading.
Slime.
With the flamethrower, while reloading, you have nothing, which is not the case for the other two.
Sticky flames are a thing, and I think they do technically last that long, but sticky flames obviously don't inherently have slowdown. The flamethrower doesn't inherently have slowdown, and that is... I'm hesitant to call that weakness, but that's something that it has that the others don't. But it's what it has that the others don't. It's
one
much
of my
better
issues
at just covering a lot more ground.
It's one of my issues. Well, I just have a lot of things that I have an issue with the flamethrower with, but it's the fact that, like, yeah, even with my favorite flamethrower build, which is just ammo, it's like the extended mag, so I don't have to reload as often, so I can go through like an entire swarm without having to reload like probably like once, and I can like do it in a brief moment of like thingy. I don't get jumped by having to reload, right? Even with that being the case, they still find the issue of I have ignited this horde of glyphids. They are going to die, but they're not dead yet. And I have to now then run away from all these fucking basically dead glyphids, but they'll still beat the shit out of me, enemies. And this is an issue I have with most status effects, but it is kind of a thing for the flamethrower, in that, like, you know, like, you've killed the enemies, but if you don't want to get hit by them, you're going to have to use more ammo than you need. Otherwise, you need to, like, back off, run away, and, like, relocate. And obviously, it's really solid against obviously like really small targets, right? Like swarmers, even like just normal grunts, they don't really stand a fucking chance against the flamethrower.
I think actually, so swarmers are definitely a big strength that it has actually over a lot of other weapons. I feel like most weapons actually aren't inherently good against swarmers, and at the same time, the flamethrower for me, it's actually those 5th tier upgrades that make it as good against swarmers. It's also those 5th tier upgrades are actually the most interesting part of it. I think that's where the most choice is.
What are they? Heat Radiance?
So you've got Heat Radiance and the really terribly named mod, Targets Explode on Death.
Right.
Because personally, it's always Heat Radiance, but that other one feels really good against crowds, especially crowds of tiny enemies. It genuinely feels really fantastic. And like, the reason I give value to that, even though I don't use it a lot, is because the flamethrower already isn't good against bigger targets.
Yeah,
and
that's
that target
another
explode
issue.
on death is just for smaller things anyway. You're not going to be killing anything other than small things with direct flamethrower damage. So,
you could argue that the like a Praetorian in amongst grunts, the best way of killing it with like default flamethrower or like just mods flamethrower is having them explode like in the Praetorian. That's probably how you're going to do the most damage against it, because against, like, honestly, grunt guard and above, the flamethrower starts struggling.
What we should say though is everything below in terms of endurance. So that actually includes acid splitters as well. Because
Yeah, if you can reach them.
they're arguably a higher priority target, but their endurance is lower. Anything lower in endurance than a guard will die once you've set it on fire, which is a very big deal.
Yeah.
which is
Happens very quickly,
everything
obviously.
above won't, and it suddenly feels far less efficient against those things.
You're suddenly using your pickaxe, your drills, your axes. You're suddenly having to use other things to make up for the complete lack of instantly killing potential that the flamethrower has in that regard.
And personally, I don't think that would be a problem as a trade-off for how good it is against just large crowds of trash. I don't think it would be like necessarily a bad thing if it just wasn't as good against anything sort of bigger, sort of up there. It is a problem though when you consider the fact that, and I just can't believe that no one talks about this more often. It's just kind of just useless against every boss. It's kind of just we need to talk about this.
It is a fact that this is a criticism that can be levied against all three of Driller's primaries, especially against a Caretaker. Caretaker, none of them do anything. Flamethrower is actually really the best. If you use Face Melter, it's probably the best option against the Caretaker.
That's fair. The Caretaker really throws a wrench in the works. The Sludge Pump. But, I think the Cryo Cannon does have a use against Dreadnoughts. You can still freeze them.
Which I need to. It's just so much. The flamethrower is kind of annoying because there's so many my brain is just scattered. But I need to mention this. But there's also this. With bringing up the Caretaker, we'll come back to the bosses. But bringing up the Caretaker, robots are a very important part of the flamethrower. There's that issue in that. In what we said in the anything with more endurance than a grunt struggles. That is not the case for robots, right? You can have the Nemesis pull up on you, which can be argued to have more endurance than the Grunt Guard, and your flamethrower will deal with it. They did make it not as good at dealing with it and igniting it. I think that was a whole thing, right? That they made it harder to ignite and kill instantly. But still, flamethrower.
You can still do that. For me, it's the turrets actually where it comes in. It just does them in instantly.
Yeah. Turrets aren't an issue. Patrol bots actually kind of get
heat radiance. As long as you got heat radiance and you get up close, it will go. They'll just go down.
Yeah. Flamethrower. It was the cure to the robots issue, right? People that struggled with the robots would use the flamethrower, and it became while the robots were as big as a thing, and they're still around, obviously. It became fair enough to use the flamethrower because before then we just unanimously agreed that the flamethrower is just worse and it shouldn't be picked over the other two, or other one for most of the time.
Even though I don't believe that. I don't believe that now. I think I still would have believed it back then. But even if we didn't have the slug pump now, I wouldn't believe that still. I think the flamethrower is better in my head than it used to be. Not that it actually got stronger, except indirectly because of the robots.
We seriously gaslit ourselves into hating the flamethrower more than
I think me and Tom probably gaslit ourselves and then bullied you into thinking it was bad.
Yeah, it's just because you two, especially Tom, because he doesn't mince his fucking words, he just really wanted me to use the cryo cannon because it just makes everything easier for everyone else.
It's just you have to use the cryo cannon.
Yeah, and I didn't want to. I really like the flamethrower, and it's important to note I like the flamethrower with the extended mags. And I'm going to ignore that for now. We're going to go back to the boss thing because it being really strong against the rivals is a positive, but it's not as big as a positive anymore. Plus, a lot of other guns do apply fire, just none better than the flamethrower. So you do have other options.
It's not the only good way to deal with robots.
Yeah, so just actually doing high damage and hitting their
precise.
Points.
Electricity
corrosion,
is good,
explosions, electricity,
melee damage.
There are a lot of other ways.
Melee damage, even on Driller, the impact axe can almost one-shot a patrol bot. Still, on Hazard 5.
Charged attack.
If you increase the damage on your pickaxe power attack, that almost does it as well. And it's just a sliver of health left to deal with. It's
which wouldn't be hard to do with even the cryo cannon. You could, especially now they did make the cryo cannon a little bit more usable against robots. I really haven't tested that, to be honest with you.
No, I haven't either because don't like. We'll get to that.
Yeah, but like it is right. Yeah, it being able to deal with robots is a positive. However, I would argue that its negatives still outweigh it, which is obviously a very controversial take. But boss fights. Let's go back to that. Obviously, Caretaker is garbage, but like all of them are. Like all of Driller's primaries.
It's also you can't. There's no like argument. It's just like it's just elimination, and I feel like there's probably not many people make it. There's probably not many people making that argument, to be fair. But I still want to take it down anyway because first of all, that's a whole mission type.
Yeah.
So
that's
already
a whole objective.
It's the
right?
whole. That's the thing. It's the entire mission type. Industrial sabotage isn't just the
Going
Caretaker.
Go into an elimination solo with a flamethrower and see how well that goes for you. See how fun of a time you're going to have.
There is also the Caretaker. There's also random dreadnought spawns. There's also other bosses that you can encounter. Like you can encounter a Corlock or a Betsy or even an Omen, and it's still bad.
In all fairness, no, it actually isn't though. I would like to put my foot in the ground here. Nemesis, first of all, flamethrower fire robot.
Unfortunately, Tyler, it's not a boss. But it is.
But like Betsy is actually not that bad because you can set the parasites on fire first of all, which is always that's what makes it slightly better than against the dreadnoughts, because that's the main thing I would argue. That's why it's just worse than the other options, because you legitimately cannot apply your status effect to the dreadnought, right? Meanwhile, you can set the Corlock sprouts on fire, which are very good. They are very vulnerable to fire. And you can set fire to the like sucker charges, and also go through Betsy. You don't have to be where the sucker is to attack them, which is a positive. So while I would say that it's not amazing against any boss, it's not at the same level as those ones. Like mini bosses, the flamethrower can deal with them, which thank the fucking Lord. Because if you're using a flamethrower and then like any mini boss occurs and you're like, shit, I now cannot complete the mission because I'll be mini fucked over. What, like Corlock, Betsy?
Those guys are just bosses. I don't call them mini bosses. They're just straight bosses. They're just not dreadnought.
Yeah.
In my head.
Oh yeah. But yeah, the flamethrower is more usable. Obviously, you know, you can get outranged by the Corlock spits. You have to get close to Betsy, which doesn't often go well as soon as it turns into minigun form. It's not preferable, but it is usable, unlike against Dreadnoughts and Caretaker. Okay? That's just what I wanted to clarify. I didn't want to bad faith that hard, because if we make those kind of claims, it demerits the actual ones we do make.
Did he talk about combos?
I feel like we should, but I feel like I feel guilty that we didn't talk about like the Burning Hell combo with volatile bullets on the minigun. It's still an A.
I brought it up.
That is like one of the best things.
I did mention it, but at the same time, I feel like now the flamethrower actually has this the least, in my opinion, out of the dreaded weapons. But it's still more of a thing than the minigun. That's just one overclock, right?
Yeah.
Combos are Driller's thing, kind of. Well, they are in a lot of ways. But the flamethrower has probably the most limited in terms of combos. That's just a fact, really, because it's the Sabata kind of just adds it. But unfortunately, the Sabata is the Sabata and doesn't really pair with the other two primaries at all. It's just kind of weird. And then the only other one is just the temperature shock build on the wave cooker. But we also need to talk about that specifically. That's useful, because that's the difference between this and the Burning Hell build. That's always any flamethrower build, really. It can be used on.
And I would argue, and like as we mentioned, anything Grunt Guard and above, you basically can't do anything against. Temperature shock wave cooker, completely opposite of that. You can violate Praetorians with setting them on fire with the flamethrower, temperature shocking them, setting them on fire, temperature shocking them. They never stood a chance. I mentioned that it works on pretty much every build for the flamethrower. It's also pretty much every build, like not every build, but a lot of builds for the wave cooker, as long as you take that upgrade.
Because I personally prefer it with. I like gamma contamination the most, actually, because of the amounts of health that enemies can get left on. It's actually a really good way of finishing them off, or not having to finishing them off, and the radiation just does it itself. I've actually found that to be quite effective.
Although, while that is the case, really, a pickaxe attack will do that, and meanwhile you can add mega power supply, and the level of efficiency that you have for killing larger targets is unparalleled.
Oh, no, that's fair. Gamma contamination also makes the wave cooker better on its own, though, as well.
Point is that with the new temperature shock thing, the flamethrower lost its biggest weakness, being its lack of killing bigger targets.
Not against the dreadnoughts, though.
Not against dreadnoughts, not against bosses, but like against like Praetorian levels, you don't have to use your axes constantly anymore, like you did used to in your drills, and that is a barter or EPC, whatever you had before, right? You can now actually use the flamethrower to kill a it's using the flamethrower and the wave cooker, but that's better than what it used to be. But in saying that, it's not like the flamethrower was the only thing that benefited from it. The cryo cannon is also just as effective. However, I would argue just as effective. Actually, it's
not.
Well,
and it mainly comes down to you can actually set things on fire quicker.
It is that. It's the flamethrower is quicker at setting things on fire, especially bigger things, which is what you want to use it on. So with the wave cooker temperature shock,
it's not hard to set an oppressor on fire, really.
Yeah, which is, first of all, it's the only flamethrower build I can stand using. Let's get it out of the way. Flamethrower, expanded mags, whatever that overclock is, like with where you get bigger mags, and temperature shock wave cooker is the only flamethrower build I can get behind. Otherwise, ass. Because I wanna get onto this now. Fucking sticky flames sucks, and in that it doesn't inherently suck. Like, it's actually very efficient. It slows them down. It sets them on fire. Deals a good amount of damage. But like, fuck that kind of gameplay. Like, I already disliked it. Like, for a while, I never really wanted to use the sticky flame build. It's like, okay, I have a flamethrower, let's shoot the floor, right? That's like already like, wow, thanks for ruining the flamethrower. But second of all, they added the sludge pump. They added the fucking sludge pump. That is sticky flamed, but better, the gun.
I want to.
And people still use sticky flames.
I need to put in a word about the sludge pump. It's like, first of all, it's the concept of sticky flames done better. It also literally has it, and that means, because obviously you can set the sludge on fire, and that is, there's no getting around that being more powerful than sticky flames, just in terms of the damage it can deal.
Yeah.
It's also just, it does that style of gameplay more satisfyingly, because it does it, but you don't actually always have to just shoot the floor. In fact, you never really do that with the sludge pump.
But I shoot the ceiling.
Yeah. but you still get arguably better results than sticky fuel, and it's also just the whole gun.
Sludge pump is built for it. It is built to make that kind of mechanic like fun and playable and usable and good and fun and cool, right?
You can't talk about the cum gun for too long.
No, obviously not. But like, because then we're bringing it back to the flamethrower. In that, like, sticky flames, I already disagreed with it being one of the main two paths of the flamethrower. Because let's be realistic.
I disagree with the other one.
the actual overclocks that we personally like, the ammo ones and arguably the long range ones, those aren't paths. Right? You don't like putting ammo and setting things on fire on the flamethrower. That is like a 0.5 path. Like, they didn't intend for you to really be able to do that. They just gave you the option to, right? Clearly, for the flamethrower, their paths were sticky flame build, direct damage build, right? And that's pretty obvious.
I'll respect them for actually putting in a lot of
unstable.
I respect them for putting in a lot of actual mods that clearly indicate a path you can go down. It still doesn't work for me, though, and I think maybe that's the problem, that they just tried too hard to make sticky flames a thing, or tried too hard to make it a thing that you can make a thing, instead of just making it more inherent.
Because I mean, that's the thing, though. Like, I would argue, like, you look at the mods, sticky flames is so pushed upon you. The flamethrower is actually definitely supposed to be used for the sticky flames. So, have you ever tried to use a sticky flames build without sticky fuel
The overclock.
There's like a clean one, isn't there? And I haven't tried
Well,
it
that
because
overclock's quite weird, actually. I want to use that again. It's been a while. The one where it's like it gives you like a little bit of extra direct damage and sticky flames duration. It's like, what is that?
because
There's no
that
overclock
is
to
like
give you more heat, though.
that.
I mean,
That is that.
but that's the point of the sticky flame thing, isn't it? That's how you're supposed to get more heat.
Yeah, you shoot. Yeah, it's supposed to be like you shoot through the enemy, like you shoot down through them, hitting them and setting the floor underneath them on fire. Like that. Well, that is a way that you use sticky flames. Probably how that clean mod is intended you to use. Otherwise, you fucking bunker, which is first of one of the least fun mechanics in the game, or just use it normally, and then you just like. Just like spray like a circle, like or like a line in front of the enemies, and then you go fuck off and do something else.
It
And
also
like,
goes against one of the things it's best against, which is actually Mactera. I think it's pretty good against Mactera, and it's like, oh, I just have a shit ton of less ammo, and the main point of my build doesn't work against flying enemies.
yeah, you have to then like go into a small enclosed area where their flying is touching the ceiling to be able to use it.
I assume that a single patch of sticky flames, like one ammo's worth of sticky flames, can destroy a turret, like a rival turret. I assume.
Probably, but the fact that the flamethrower is good against the robots isn't anything new. But then imagine using sticky flames against a patrol bot, right? You have then lost like the main. Like, how have you fucked up the gun so bad?
I think it does work against Nemesis though. I think Nemesis is always close enough to the floor.
Well, obviously you can make it.
Its default distance from the floor is average. Obviously, it can fly, but it doesn't just fly. It usually flies to go down.
Yeah.
In certain areas.
But like, yeah, basically, I am personally, I was against sticky flame before they even added the sludge pump, and now with the sludge pump in the game, there is no good reason as to why the flamethrower's main build is just worse than the sludge pump's whole thing. It's just damage over time with a status effect on the floor that slows enemies down. Literally, that is how you could describe sticky flames. That's how you could describe the sludge pump. And the sludge pump does it so much fucking better. And that is why I do not like the flamethrower. Plus, face melter is ass. It doesn't do a good enough job of what it says to do.
It gets a lot of like love. I just kind of hate it.
Face melter should be a overclock that allows you to just fucking murder a Praetorian, right? Like that should be what it does. Right, that should be just you can. It's like the fucking shard diffractor, right? You should just be able to decide you die now and do an obscene amount of damage against an enemy, right? But it really doesn't do that. It's like it half-asses its way to.
I think it'd be really cool if it was a bit more complicated, and it would be something like because obviously there's actually no. When it comes to switching ammo types or performing extra functions, the only places that it's present is either on weapons that don't have magazines or have one-round magazines, which is the crossbow. But I think they should try and implement that for things that have magazines, to be ability to switch firing modes. And I think if face melt was something where you could switch and make it so that all the heat gets turned into direct damage, something like that.
Well, yeah, like it halves the range and use like fucking jet fuel, like it's a white flame kind of thing, and it just instantly like sears any enemies that get near you. They fucking evaporate like immediately. Like something like that would be a rewarding direct damage flamethrower thing, but face melter isn't that.
It's also really weird that face melter doesn't get rid of sticky flames in exchange for more damage. That's something it definitely should do.
It's just like do more damage, but there's still not enough damage. But now you can't do other things as well. Face melter is just like it's not as bad as sticky flames. It might right.
I'm gonna check what face melter does quick. That's right there.
Yeah.
Right. Okay. But the point was that it does. I thought maybe does it actually affect sticky flames or not? As in, it should. It should make sticky flames worse. So you get even more damage. That's what it should do.
But I don't know. It's just not all that, and none of them are all that. Like, it's just.
Actually, hold on. This is something that's really cool, right? This is a bit of a tangent, but I think this is actually worth throwing in here to maybe potentially prove why we're right. So Carl.gg they've done something really fucking cool, which is in the advanced stats. It shows you like your total like potential damage to multiple targets. It like averages it out. So if we take your build, So is
Compact
this
three
right?
barrels. That the fire one in the middle, and then that is probably it. I might have extra range on the primary one. I'm not sure, but like, I mean, I could check if you want, but it would take a little bit of time.
Don't worry. Just go over this, and we see advanced stats, and it has theoretical maximum multi-target damage, 192,730. I suppose that doesn't actually prove anything until we actually put in a sticky flames one. So this should be interesting. It's not going to change anything in terms of our opinions, but we still need to see. So I think they just do all the sticky flame stuff, don't they?
They slow down.
They
yeah,
can
duration.
sacrifice all their fucking ammo.
Yeah.
Like nut jobs, but we'll still have the magazine size.
Because if you don't spec so heavily into it, it's not really worth it.
Oh look, it's only 100,000. So okay.
What about face melter?
I don't want to look at face melter.
Well,
fine. Well,
then, like,
face melter
damage...
would be ammo damage, right?
No. Probably what's the middle tier 3 first one? What's that? Flow rate. It'll be that.
That's
one.
what most people are doing though.
No, probably not. But if you wanted to spec, but like it's clearly that flow
DPS.
rate is for the DPS spec, and really the whatever the fear one is probably is as well. But we'll give them.
That's different though, because it's also actually more than sticky things, by the way. But it's more for single target anyway.
Yeah.
So
because like it's just the fact that it's just not. It's just its main build that it really kind of brags about, and it's like face melter, damage, kill things with a flamethrower, rad, and like fucking sticky flames, which I don't think you can make any argument for being cool.
Instead of just working with how inherently good fire is just on its own, more ammo is just really all you need. It makes it work.
Which is all I rely on most of the time. Yeah, it's just igniting things, and anything that survives, I melee.
We've got to place it. And I think we already have.
I think we already have.
It sounds like we should be putting it lower, doesn't it?
Yeah, but the issue is sticky flames is good. I just don't like it. Like it's a very boring, bad playstyle that shouldn't be in the game. Or at least like it is in the game, but it's in a better state on the sludge pump. It should now be removed from the flamethrower, but it's still like the most efficient build in the flamethrower, and it still does a very good job at what it does. It like slows enemies down, deals good damage, ignites things well. Like it's good at what it does.
It's
I just
also
think what
a big
it does
part
is
of
pointless.
it actually got a boost in a lot of people's eyes, and I think it's probably just objective from the wave cooker thing. Because the way it slows enemies down and it has like a longer duration, so it's constantly setting things on fire without you needing to use the flamethrower.
I do think the addition of temperature shock flamethrower build does completely negate the purpose of face melter used to be just so you could like fight against anything, but at this point in time, face melter's only purpose is if you refuse to change primary to fight a fucking dreadnought, because face melter is the only other thing that would be worth using, even like unless you want to like all you want to contribute to the fight is slowing down a dreadnought with sticky flames, right? Yeah, which you'll slow it down, actually be able to deal your status effect and all that stuff. But the point is that the flamethrower isn't terrible. It's still strong. It could just be better. Like it could just face melter could actually face melt. Sticky flames could be removed and added and replaced with something fun and new now that sludge pump has taken over that regard. And I think maybe they could, do the fire spreading thing a bit more, like how I'm not sure, is like fire bolts on the crossbow, does that spread fire better? Like is that like an actual thing?
It's quite like hypothetical, or understanding it's quite hypothetical, because it sounds sort of wrong when you say that it's better because it doesn't deal any damage, but it's not why it's better, but that's why it's good at what it does, is because it just heats things up, which means it makes grunts themselves more capable of spreading fire, which usually isn't the case, because grunts usually, you've probably done most of the damage by setting them on fire, but the firebolt does no damage in that process, which means the grunts have more time to radiate heat themselves. That's a big part.
Maybe something for the flamethrower, like something like this would be, I mean, obviously once again we've done a whole thing on workshop, but this is another overclock that I don't think we made. I mean, you made wildfire, which is like relies on this mechanic that I wanted them to lean on more, of just pure igniting things. But something like the flamethrower does like a lot less damage, but it's like boosts fire spread, right? So like, and you can like ignite an entire fucking horde, and you get like a slight movement speed, so you can run away from the fucking glyphids while they burn. Something like that would be a thing to spec down, which would be pretty cool. But that's not really the point here. The point is,
do you want to know what would be a really fucking cool replacement for neurotoxic grenades? Just an oil canister. You can just spray pools of oil.
Yeah, well, that's what the sludge pump is.
Shit, you're right.
Yeah, don't spoil our sludge pump things, but you might be able to tell what we think about it. But the point is I think the flamethrower could do a lot better. Like, I hate it, and I hate what it could, like, compared to what it could be. I hate what it is. Like, I would want to put it in C, but strength-wise, you can't really justify anything lower than a B. People would argue that it's like S or at least A, but fuck you, you're wrong.
I mean, we saw the
Sticky
total
Flames,
damage, but it's not about that.
Yeah, Sticky Flames is a boring, pointless part of the game right now. It's just worse sludge pump. Its direct damage that it can put out is not worth talking about. And the only good builds it has, it barely cares about. So fuck it, B. Plus, it does have robot buff, which counters out, I guess, the boss nerf, if you know what I mean. Like, anyway, it being strong against the rivals brings it up from being terrible against bosses.
I really need the toilet.
It has been like not even an hour.
Actually, it has. So.
Yeah,
I was drinking a lot. A whole cup of tea.
Okay.
Lots of water.
We'll pause and then we'll do the deep call.
Pause at 11.
Yeah.
We're back, and it's the moment you've all been waiting for.
Right.
It's Smormu. I mean, the Deep Core GK2. There it is.
The Jeep Core DK2.
The Jeep Core.
The Jeep Core DK2. It's Jeep based music, Jeep Core. And then it's the second of Donkey Kong. Jeep Core DK2.
It's the Better Call Saul theme, Jeep Core.
Range. Let's fucking start with that again, because I'm leading into it at this point. Yeah, Range Rover, the Jeep Core.
The
range
too long.
Yeah, mid to long. It's whatever you decide it to be. It's really a you can really fuck up the range on the GK. Yeah, you can fuck it up bad. You can make it so you can only use it at like point blank with how much like recoil, flare, and like spread and everything, like all that stuff. You
can make it feel like a pea shooter at close range if you want, because that's what happens with AI Stability Engine.
Yeah, not
at really close range.
What do you mean? It's
just like, much. Unless you're still trying to be really precise.
You should be. It is so good, literally, right? Because, like, right.
It's better than it used to be.
It used to be fine. Obviously, apparently not, because they buffed it. But, like, you can use AI stability perfectly fine close range. Because, like, just, like, aim up, head height, and then just shoot. And, like, don't move up or down on the thing. Just, like, aim head height on, like, glyphids and then just fire.
I kind of like the idea of Deep Rock fucking up people's, like, natural crosshair resting position. Because, like, head height is not human head height.
You're gonna, like, straight down. Yeah. You can just, like, line up. Like, sometimes terrain is, like, perfect as well. And it's just... It is fine close range. Obviously, it's not, like, a reliable one. Like, you do have to be accurate, but, you got your secondary for that. But it is, with AI stability, its range is, like, as good as you're really going to get for, like, most weapons, like, long range. Like, it's, like, hit, scan, pinpoint, weak point on the AI, but that's not the point. Point is, the GK really has, like, whatever range you wish to spec into, kind of range. Bit like the minigun, but the minigun, you can't really make it bad at any kind of range. It's always as good as it's ever going to be. But the Deep Core, you can make it unusable at long range if you want to, and difficult, admittedly, to use close range.
I mean, you can make the minigun unusable at long range if you want.
I guess
you really can, actually.
But it's really not hard for the Deep Core, is it, though? Like, just like have recoil, and the long range comes.
I can use it still. To be honest.
Oh, Mr. Mister, I can recoil over here. Shut up.
Either way, even with that, it doesn't take away from the fact that the whole point of the GK2, even more than the minigun, is that it's supposed. It is meant to be used against weak points more than anything. I really like this idea that it's like an automatic weapon, but weak points are still where it's at, and yet somehow it doesn't feel wrong. It doesn't feel that those two things don't go together, because it has I mean, especially after this is the whole point. It got buffed a lot, which means it's quicker. Like, it's got a higher fire rate, more damage, and I think it's even more accurate. So it's just doing everything right. Where it even doesn't feel bad on body shots, but it's just that being able to hit weak points like consistently just feels so good, and you just get so much more damage out of it because it has inherently. Something that the minigun doesn't have is, first of all, any way to increase weak point damage. It also doesn't have an inherent weak point bonus like Toshike 2. So
yeah, and
it also has starts with its full accuracy.
I think the first thing you gotta do
enemies
is like, other than like the facts of what it isn't, I can't think of any flaws. Like, obviously it's an assault rifle that like shoots like individual bullets at a time, so it's not gonna clear like hordes in an instant with like AoE, right? It has no AoE, which is something, but I don't think it's inherently a bad thing. It's just a fact.
I know. The thing is, it's so specifically doesn't have any form of AoE, because even electric reload, it isn't technically a form of AoE at all. There's no form of. You can't even get any kind of penetration on the GK2. There is no even indirect form of AoE.
Yeah. It uses the same thing as like default minigun, in that its AoE or its crowd clearing is just killing single enemies so quickly that you could do that multiple times, like just as someone else would hit them, just more enemies at once.
That is true. I'd argue that kind of playstyle wasn't viable with the GK2 beforehand, though. No. Before you really had to go down the lane of specific damage boosts and being more precise. Yeah. Now it's just so much more flexible, and everything that was good about it before got stronger at the same time. It's just...
Yeah, they really just. I would make the argument that, you know how like going into season 3 they just nerfed the shit out of patrol bots and like robots as a whole generally, but like mainly the patrol bots, just because they were like, they had enough, right? They just wanted to nerf the shit out of them, and they didn't really care like how. I feel like they kind of did the same thing for the GK2, in that like, I wouldn't say arguably it's too strong, because I think, and you would probably agree, that it still like contends with the Drac, right? It's not undeniably the best of the three.
Okay, so on that, I would argue, I think the wording should actually be the Drac contends with the GK2, because that would be the more community friendly wording, I think, because I think the GK2 has risen like to the top.
But, like, which is just what I think. I feel like they literally buffed it in every way they could conceive. And no one's complaining about it, because no one's going to complain about a buff, right? No one's going to say the GK2 is too strong at like with its fire rate and weak point bonus and like ammo, right? It would only ever be Ghost Ship that like calls themselves out on that, and they're like, okay, we need to pull back there, which, you know, they could do. I honestly think it is possible that they could nerf some elements of the GK2, because it is, and I haven't used it a ton, I'll admit. I used it an amount, but like, it is so easy to make the GK2 good now, right? Like, so many builds are more than enough for like, Scout.
Yeah, even
which is still like not amazing.
Even like, overclock firing mechanism, which was kind of just like where you just go all in on rate of fire and nothing else. Even like that beforehand was a bit like, oh, this is kind of just a fun but not particularly effective build. It's like, well, no, not anymore, because now it's actually more accurate than it used to be, and more damage. And I don't think you can actually achieve more like potential rate of fire, but you can still have like a monstrous rate of fire without completely specking into it as well. And it's just that is a genuinely good build now. It's just got a ridiculous range of good builds, in my opinion. Hold on, I need to actually quickly look at the make sure I'm not forgetting anything. Where is it? GK2. Yeah, honestly, I think first of all, it's got 7 overclocks. Three of which are clean, and I think the fact that it's really only these 2 that don't particularly have a real purpose.
Can they actually see the car right now?
Yeah,
Is that
yeah.
okay? I thought it was only locked onto the one.
It's literally just compact ammo and gas rerouting. They're the only ones that I don't think serve any purpose. Even homebrew powder is just a solid damage increase, and all of these are builds.
Yeah,
They all
builds
represent
to
builds
do their
you
own
can
thing.
make.
Like very good.
They would all actually be in like A or S tier in a tier list. That's the crazy thing.
And like before, some of them would lack, but just because they buffed the default GK2 so much, it's just that they just did so much where I would actually make the argument. Well, first of all, you could argue S for the GK2.
Well, first of all, let's just do that.
Minimum. Like it's definitely an A, easy. But like, I'm thinking about it, and like, it is difficult to make a bad GK2 build. It's just we have the issue of as a scout, you're still going to be worse than like everyone else, right? Like you got less firepower. That's just kind of how it works. But like, you got to think about it, and I mean, fucking hell, man, the GK2 excels at so many things. Everything other than AoE.
Upgrades they made better. I mean, I assume this is up to date. Yeah, it is actually, because they added a rate of fire one. First of all, +2 rate of fire. That shouldn't be underestimated. That's actually a worthy tier 5. But then they made this even better, where they just put 2 in 1.
Yeah.
It's just, and the mod selection. I don't know what I could say is bad about it. I guess maybe this tier is a little bit funny, but not only because it's the GK2, but even then, if you're going for a rate of fire build, hardened rounds feels pretty fantastic. It's
just I don't know, like. I can't think of an area that it lacks in. Electrifying reload as a elemental. Let's go fucking like break it down. Like elemental build. Electrifying reload is one of the most efficient element builds in the game, right? That's like inherently already that. And they buffed it to make it better against like bigger targets, because obviously it wasn't amazing at dealing with them. But you can now put more than one in there, deal more damage.
Well, the thing is about electric reload is that if you now, obviously this is a big deal when it comes to the GK2, but if you knock off the idea of weak point damage, it doesn't actually decrease your damage at all, because it also adds in free just electric damage, which obviously that doesn't gain any kind of weak point bonus, but it's still just free flat damage that gets dealt when you reload. That for every bullet that you put into an enemy.
And not to mention, like, the criticism I levied against kind of like status effects, in that like once you've dealt them, you know they're gonna die from it, but they're still gonna probably try and kill you. Scout doesn't fucking matter. You could ignite a horde with your electricity, which is a weird way of putting it. I guess electrocute a horde, that probably makes more sense. Electrocute a horde with your reloading, and then you just fuck off, right? And then anyone that survives, you just do it again. And you could just keep doing it and getting away with it, and it's immensely ammo efficient. And so like that is barely a build, right?
It's like,
that's just an overclock.
Yeah. I mean, and the thing I'm about to say is that you need to with electric reload. It's like I guess I should probably test this. But I know that if you on hazard 5, I know that if at least if you shoot a grunt in the face, it will die from one bullet from the electrocution. So you can do that. You can do that. You can kill a single grunt with every bit of ammo. So that's like 450 grunts technically you could kill with it if you wanted to. If you really wanted to.
And I think for Scout, that's like immense, right? Like and then that's just one. That's literally, and I hesitate to call it a build, just one overclock, right? Then you've got actual like builds like AI stability that got fucking super giga buffed, and like obviously weak point bonus got giga buffed, and now that like the amount of damage you do on weak point hits is fucking immense, right? The bosses aren't an issue with AI stability and like that shit, right? Because they often rely on weak point bonuses, and you just thrive off that. You do immeasurable amounts of damage. Like they're not a problem.
Well, except maybe the twins. The twins are a bit silly.
I guess twins aren't preferable, but you just clear the armor away and then you can use a weak point. But like generally, yeah, the AO stability is strong anyway, right? Praetorians, big asses, oppressors. I guess oppressors actually have small asses. They just have like big fronts.
Comparatively, yeah, I suppose so.
But like, yeah, it's just that's a build. You obviously like fucking you got your fucking rate of fire. So like, if you get like jumped, like you or just like close range, just spray them down with a flurry of bullets. Bullets of mercy, which works well with lots of secondaries. That's even more damage.
And I need to check something because it's not listed in game, but I'm pretty sure it was a specific thing they pointed out in the patch notes. And it doesn't say it there. I think the point is it's meant to work on pheromones now as well. I think that was in the patch notes, so let's just assume that's in.
What it is that with the secondaries, it's very easy to apply a status effect. Therefore, it's very easy to gain the bonus of bullets of mercy, which just overall increases your damage by like a fuck ton. So basically, like there are so many strong builds with the GK2 now, and like the builds were always existing before, but they just weren't that strong. But now they are. Now they're fucking. They are. I don't know.
It's like the perfect assault rifle. Yeah, it feels so much more very like flexible than that at the same time. Like it is the perfect assault rifle, and yet there are so many different, distinct builds with it at the same time.
Yeah, it doesn't suffer with the boring thing because electrifying reload, AI stability, they changed how you use the gun quite a bit. Like all of them really, bullets of mercy, like they are slightly more interesting things. I don't want to put in this. A part of me just can't bring myself to do it, but I just can't seem to deny that it doesn't belong there, right?
Like, I think so. Here's what I think. I'm pretty confident in this actually, because we're doing this in not really any particular way, but if we were doing this much more relative to like the class, I would say that the GK2 is better than the Warthog or the minigun, or the class specifically.
Yeah.
It has far less pitfalls. It basically has none for what it's supposed to be. Yeah. And I think realistically that's a very, very strong case that you can make.
The only thing you can say is the simple fact that it doesn't explode, it doesn't do like AoE, which isn't valid criticism.
We've given the Overclocks a lot of praise, but I think it's one of the best, and I think I'd need to look at the others sort of in comparison, but off the top of my head, it's definitely one of the best Overclock selections in the game because
it's got the most.
All of the ones that aren't clean are good.
Yeah,
there's not like anywhere it's like it's a downgrade. They're all massive bonuses, even electrifying reload, which is just weird. It's still as long as you understand what it is, it's still just a massive upgrade. And all the cleans, one of the cleans is very good as well, and they're just cleans anyway, so that's fine.
Yeah,
but all the balanced and unstables are very significant, and
I think
none of them are flops, basically.
Yeah, and I think with the cleans as well, though, the cleans aren't inherently a bad idea with the GK because it's also very good default, right? The mods they really like shoved so many things into the default gun and the mods when they adjusted it that it is just like strong as hell, like probably on its own. I imagine
it's also another one where ammo and damage are actually somewhat competitive. I think ammo is still a little kind of up there for me personally.
I mean, it would depend on the build, I think. Well, actually, I mean, I don't know. I think I would probably put more ammo on most of them, but like, I don't know. Yeah, I think
this it has like arguably like the least like filler or least useless things.
Yeah, and so many things it does have are very strong. For Scout, obviously, like you're still probably gonna get more kills with like any build with the minigun and maybe even the Warthog. But like for the Scout, the GK2 is just so hard to go wrong with that I don't know. If the GK2 isn't S tier, I don't know what I don't know
because I think a big thing that we sort of didn't really say, but I think is worth saying about the Warthog and the minigun is that they are also hard to make bad, and they're also just generally good. There's very little that they're bad against. But I think the GK2 is somehow even better in that department. In that it's like you'd actually have to try, I think, to make it bad. Yeah, it's like on the Warthog. I don't know. I just think the Warthog probably has a lot of builds that just aren't as good as you could make them. That you could easily make a build worse than it could be, but none of them are particularly bad. But the minigun bullet hell is a pretty easy pitfall. I think the clean ammo of the clock is just a lot worse than pretty much any other option. But the GK2 just has basically no bad options.
Yeah, like I don't know. I think if we don't put it in S now, I feel like it will be in S by the end because like I can't just because the other ones I think I know that are in S tier, like one from like ones we did last time. Like I think the GK2 now has those merits. I mean, it's just hard to put him there because it's a scout weapon. Therefore, it doesn't really have the same kind of firepower behind it. But like, as far as scout is concerned,
I think
its firepower is immense.
Personally, I think after just sort of the Drax existence and after this GK2 buff, I think there's almost an argument you could make between where the engineer primaries and the scout primaries actually like how they exist compared to each other.
Honestly, I do have to agree with you because like I mean minigun obviously more, but like between the GK2 and the Warthog, I feel like the GK2 would come out of there with more
for
kills.
example, by the way, right, like I think like Stubby in GK2, by the way, because that Stubby's going to be the next one that goes on. By the way, just in terms of criminology, I think the GK2 is just better, even though Stubby actually has more ammo on average, but. And
I don't know, because you got to also think of it this way, right? Like, we could put S as in the best weapon for each class, and I think the GK2 is definitely a fighter for that. If we don't put it in S now, I think we just need to leave it in A, but keep an eye on it.
I think I'd rather do that, especially when I think about later on. And by later on, I actually mean both Scouts Gen 3 weapons, actually. But yeah. Well, normally the way that we do this actually is the further to the left is like higher up, isn't it? So
yeah, let's do it there.
Is that right though? If we want to do it that way, are those two correct? Or is that a bit too granular? Maybe they're just equal.
I think the minigun does pull ahead because you've got to give it the interesting element and being good. It's interesting and good. It's just not that good that it's S. Meanwhile, the Warthog is probably better than the minigun in like all around
on average,
but it's just not as interesting. So I guess they are equal, but like as far as using it is concerned, I think the minigun's probably more preferable. I think more people like using the minigun, and I think I get why. But like GK2 is a contender for S. I really do think it comes down to the fact that Scout's weapons just give off a less S feeling generally. I think that's the only reason why we haven't already put it there. Plus, you really like the Drac, so it might come down to when that goes down, one of them will go in S. But I think that is us for this video. And Harry, I don't know about you, but maybe we don't do this all in one session. It's up to you.
I'm going to tell you right now, we might not have time.
Yeah, I mean...
do you want to... First, actually, right, any... Not final thoughts, but it's like, are you happy with this? I think we have to be, basically.
I think you've got to consider, like, even though we're doing this gen-wise, we're not taking them, like, when they were released. Right now, I agree with this. And I feel like most other people, the only way they would change this is they'd bring Flamethrower up to A, right? I don't think anyone else...
when we started, I sort of saw that happening until we got into how many problems you think the Flamethrower has.
Yeah.
It couldn't be right. Like it feels weird because like in a lot of ways, the Flamethrower does feel inherently stronger than all of those, especially the GK2, like just because it's just like a roaring... rate of fire compared to a very standard assault rifle. At the same time, I couldn't put those two in the same tier.
No,
because the GK2 is just so much better relative
Yeah, the only issue, like the only criticism I realize I could levy against GK2 is that if you use the electrifying reload build, there are a lot of things that are immune to electricity for no fucking reason, right? That's like one of the few criticisms I can
But
think of.
that's like that comes down to analyzing that overclock.
Exactly. Meanwhile, I would levy that
which still
against like
represents
the
a viable
entire
build.
flamethrower.
Exactly.
Like,
Exactly.
yeah. So that's kind of where I'm at right now. Is that like I don't think it's just the flamethrower. While technically the gun probably outputs more damage than the GK2, and it's like does more stuff for the character. It is just worse than the those other ones, and I don't think. What are you up to? You're making a build. Oh.
That's the weird thing. It's like theoretical maximum damage is like 9,968 with that. That's I don't. It's just sometimes Carl isn't helpful.
Yeah.
And it's also just Electrifying Reload is good, but it's just so good when you consider just precision and just specking into weak points and just the DPS that you can get. I can't not be good. I can't not be nice to it.
Yeah, which it's just like compare like there is I don't know. A is just very very solid. Like nothing you will not I will not insult you for loving these weapons. They are perfectly fine. They are like good. I think the GK2 might be above that from these buffs. But we'll see. We'll have to talk more about it. That's how I tend to formulate my opinion. But as far as the flamethrower goes, it's just it has too many issues, and which isn't inherently to do with its performance in game, but its position as a weapon.
A tier sort of represents the weapons where I would never, like, almost under no circumstance would I judge you for even thinking it's like the best.
Yeah, and there's not really any solid flaws that we can break it down to. Like, if you use these weapons, and you don't use them poorly, they'll carry you through whatever you're doing, really, right? But if you're doing elimination, you beat the flamethrower, you're fucked. Like, fucking.
Flamethrower, I won't inherently judge you, but I will question you on certain things if you don't like. There's certain things that I need to make sure there's certain things I need to make sure you understand about it.
Yeah.
Like if you bring it to elimination, then I will question you. But
yeah,
in general, it's just like, well, it's just a guy using the flamethrower. I don't have a problem with that.
Yeah, because it does have the firepower and output that is enough for like most things.
Firepower.
But it just has too many pitfalls to justify A. It could be C, but
so does your mom.
It just that feels wrong. It shouldn't be in C.
That's purely instinct.
It is, yeah. I mean, most of this is, and it's our instinct because once again, I guess first time, this is our opinions. You can have your own opinions. If you don't have your own opinions, you just spout what other people say without actually.
If you don't have your own opinions, just absorb ours. Just take ours.
Yeah. Well, we won't really pull you that as straight, right? You could ignore like our bad weapons, right? Like if we put your favorite weapon as like D tier, right, which I don't even think we'll touch, we might, but like if we put your favorite weapon in D tier, you could ignore it because if you're using it well, then that's enough. That's fine, whatever, right? Second thing, and I'm just going to cut this in here like a little bracket. Everything we're saying only applies for Hazard 5 and I guess technically above if you mod. I'm not sure. In fact, it will change a lot if you did modded, so don't really consider that. Just Haz 5, right? Or Haz 5.5 for the end game fucking Elite Deep Dive, right? All of these, all guns, except maybe the stubby, are S tier. Fucking Haz 4 and below.
Oi.
Right, so don't worry about it. Haz 4 and below. But Haz 5, some builds fall apart, some weapons aren't quite enough, and that's what we're here to rifle around for.
I'll get you.
Because ghost ship plates, buffing guns are bad, and let's try and figure out which ones those are.
Stubby. I guess maybe maybe there's something I have to concede there. Is that like you say like the Stubby's like the only one that isn't like S tier on the Hazard 4, and I'm like, hey, don't say that. And yet I also think it's the most likely one to get like overhauled next.
Which we will get into at the beginning of the next video, I think, as the chronological order would dictate.
It is the next on the list, Stubby.
Yeah.
That should be interesting.
Yeah. I mean, this was for a part 1 of 3. How long was this, Harry?
This is classic Barrel Vision, right? This was like the whole. This was almost when we sort of started the channel. It's like this is what we do, isn't it? This is the whole point of Barrel Vision. It's like it's the kind of stuff, some content that you can see a lot of people making, but the difference is that we do content that other people do in 10 minutes, except we do it in the form of like a long form conversation. That was like one of our gimmicks we thought that would work for us.
Another channel would like have written it down like a couple times, like refined it, concentrated it, and they just like tell you it. We discover it as we talk between ourselves, and you discover it with us. And hopefully, I don't know, you've learned something. But that's it for us. We got to go.
Oh, so you can just skip to the end and see our choices. That's fine.
Yeah.
It's either one. Do you want to see how long it is? I'll tell you afterwards. So you want to go? We are going. Yeah. All right. Well, this will keep us busy for the next few weekends.
Yeah.
Thank you all so much for watching, you lovely men. Because there are no women. Have you checked that stat recently?
No.
I feel like that's a bit of an in-joke about Barrel Vision. Yeah, that means we got to end it. So, if you enjoyed this, please make sure to do the thing, Rock and Stone, which translates directly from Dwarvish to English as like and subscribe, and we'll see you all next time. We'll see if Tyler wants to put in a final word, but if he doesn't, goodbye.